Alright guys, so we did a lot of reviews this year, but today we're going to be talking about the best games of those reviews. And I have a couple rules if you haven't watched one of my previous best games of the year. It has to be something, obviously, that I played, and something that I reviewed on the channel. So, like God of War Ragnarok. I haven't played it, I've watched some of it, and I haven't reviewed it, so it won't be on this list. The same thing goes for tomorrow or maybe the day after when I make the most disappointing games of the year. It's the same exact case. I have to have reviewed it, and I have to have played it. That way, obviously I'm not going to sit here and talk about each game for 45 minutes, but if you want that, if you want more of my opinion on it, it's already there on the channel for you to go watch. So I'm going to pull up the list of every single game we reviewed for this whole year, both the good ones, the bad ones, the just okay ones, and then we'll start out. And I'm not doing a top 10 or top 5 or a certain number. I just go through my list and pick the ones that were good, pick the ones that were bad, and whatever number that turns out to be, that's how long the list is. So coming in at the bottom of the list, number 6 is Multiverses. And so this game I feel like could have been way higher on the list, especially with the list that we have, because a lot of the games that came out this year weren't that great, and not that many games came out. A lot of stuff got delayed, a lot of stuff just got canceled, and a lot of the games were just fine. I ended up looking through my list overall, and a lot of them were just in that fine range, and this is kind of how I feel about Multiverses. It's not the greatest thing ever, it's free, so that helps it out, but for the most part, as a fighting game, it does what it needs to do to get by. Now, for the life of the game and the replay value, that's where you have a problem. It's not really worth playing for more than a couple of days. You play each character, find the ones you like, find the ones you don't like, and that's pretty much it. There's really no progression unless you buy the battle pass. There's no reason to keep playing because the updates are so few and far between. I mean, this game's been out since May maybe? It's been out for a while. It's the oldest game on this best list, and it's added 4 characters, and 2 of them are essentially the same. So I mean, really, it's just fine. If it constantly would have been updating and putting out new content, as well as, adding a ranked mode, which, just to my knowledge, last time I played, this still is not out. So there's just so many things wrong here, the lack of progression, and so many things that they could have done better with decent gameplay that would have put this a lot higher on the list. That being said, it's still good. It's still a good fighting game. It's fun. It's a good time if you got friends over or you're trying to just waste some time and play something. This is a good thing to play because, again, it's free. There's just not any long-term stake that you're going to have in this game. So that's why it's so low down on the list. Number 5, we have High on Life. This is the most recent one of the reviews, and I think this is the game that most people are going to disagree with. A lot of people are going to put this a lot higher. I think this is going to be at number 3 for a lot of people. If I had to guess most people's lists, it's going to be Elden Ring, God of War, interchangeably, and then this. That's just my guess, though. I thought this was fine. It's short. The humor isn't really my thing. I'm not saying that there aren't funny jokes in there, but they're few and far between, and it's not annoying to the level of some games where I was constantly infuriated by how much they were talking, but I would say it's on par if you've played the Guardians of the Galaxy game with that type of comedy. Every maybe 1 in 5 jokes land, and they're okay. It's not annoying, but it doesn't add to the score at all. From there, the gameplay, I say this in my review, it's pretty much just Doom with talking guns, right? You run around, you shoot people, you collect some upgrades, some new weapons along the way, and that's pretty much it. The story is pretty generic with just an alien invasion, and it's really the voice acting and the talking guns and the comedy that carries this game for you. If none of that works, this is going to feel pretty generic to you, and that's why I put it this low down on the list. It did everything fine, and nothing really felt above and beyond. Even if you look at something like Multiverses, which was lower on the list, that's a game that when they add new characters, maybe a ranked mode or some sort of progression to the game in some way other than the trash free battle pass that's there now, I'll go back to. This I'll never play again, right? If they had a free DLC, maybe, but I would never go back and replay this game. And my time while playing it, again, wasn't bad, but I wasn't having an absolute blast. It was just fine. This is the mid-tier game of this list. At 4 we have Overwatch 2, and it's only this low for 2 reasons. The progression, the fact that there's absolutely none at all, and the fact that aside from 2 characters now, it's a carbon copy of the first game. Other than those 2 facts, this game's fantastic. I enjoy it every time I play it. It's one of those games that I sound like I'm having an absolute awful time, but I'm loving every second of it. Now, obviously I get mad when I lose, just like every competitive game ever. Like Ninja said, if you don't get mad, you're doing it wrong. But it's great. It's a good time. I didn't play that much Overwatch 1. I have like 10 hours on it. If you've played a lot of Overwatch 1 and you just think it's fine, it's probably the same case here. You're going to think this is just fine. But I enjoy the hell out of this. Competitive modes work well. The only problem is really the queue times. It feels relatively balanced now. It was broken at launch. It's just a good time. Now, again, the reason it's this low down on the list is simply because you get absolutely nothing from playing other than ranked. There's no way to get skins realistically unless you're going to devote your life to playing this game. You can't get new emotes, and of course, unless you devote your life to this game or put a credit card in. And even the new characters are locked about halfway behind the Battle Pass, which at the rate you unlock Battle Pass tiers in this game is absurd. I've played probably a good 15-20 games since this new season with the new characters dropped, and I want to say I'm like tier 4 on the Battle Pass. So you have to play this for a good while to get the new character, or you could just pay for it. Now, currently, that's not broken, but in the future, I could see if they make a character, if you compare it to Rainbow Six Siege, which this game often is in terms of the hero-based aspects of it, they had some character that's completely broken, which these games mostly always do on the new launch of new characters, and it's locked behind a paywall that could just break the whole game, so we'll have to see in the future, but currently it works fine. I wish you got XP a little bit quicker, and again, there was progression, but it is what it is. That's why this sits at number 4. So this next one's gonna piss people off, but I promise you, it's not that bad. People give this game so much shit. If you don't know what it is, it's Gotham Knights. It's not fantastic. It definitely could have been better, but for what it is, it's a good time. If you want your beat 'em up, co-op, open world buddy game, this is the game to play. It works well. Now, it has really cool suits for some characters. The combat works decently. The story isn't a 10 out of 10 or anything amazing, but it's halfway decent. It works. It does what it needs to do to get you from plot point to plot point. The side missions, yes, are a bit repetitive, and that's why it's as low as it is, but it's decent. They just added the new mode, the Horde mode, Heroic Assault, that's what it's called. It's okay. It's Horde mode, essentially. I mean, what do you expect with that? It does everything pretty good, and that's why this is where it's at. Now, typically on a relatively good year with gaming, like if you look at last year's best games video, you wouldn't have a pretty good game at your number 3, but I felt that this year's options were really limited. Everything was either really bad or just fine, and this was one of the games, along with Overwatch 2, that I felt push into the good. High on Life and Multiverses are both decent games, but they're nothing that I would pay for. This is where I would start to recommend the game to people. Now, I would recommend this game to everybody. If you're playing it by yourself, or you don't like open world beat 'em up type games, obviously I would not recommend this to you. But if you're into those types of things, I think this is a good time, especially now. This game's like super on sale because all the reviews were so bad. So you can definitely get this for like dirt cheap. As long as you have somebody to play it with or multiple people to play it with, it's a good time. So at 2 is Modern Warfare 2 2022. That's a lot of 2s. But I'm excluding, and this is kind of cheating, the multiplayer and Warzone. I could make a whole video, a whole rant, I was very close to, on why skill-based matchmaking has ruined all of that, and just a whole 6-hour rant video, just me screaming, a compilation video, right? I'm not going to. Those modes are fine, they bring the game down a little bit, yes, but I want to talk about the campaign. It was pretty good. Again, there's like a 40-minute review if you want to go listen to me rant about the whole campaign for 40 minutes. But the gameplay feels good, it looks good. There's more of a story here than in Modern Warfare 2019, and while it still has that villain problem, and I can't remember if I made a video on this or not, because I write so many scripts down and then just don't make the video. But there's a villain problem in Call of Duty as of recent years. They throw villains out and don't do anything with them. They're barely in the game. And I know it's not a superhero movie. You want to shoot at just basically practice dummies and watch them fall down. The games need a villain. Even games that aren't great all around, like Infinite Warfare, like Advanced Warfare, Ghost. Some of the Call of Duty games that people don't like, the villains in the campaigns are very good. That's what makes those campaigns so good. If we're going to compare it to a movie, look at Thanos and Infinity War Endgame. That's what makes those movies so good. Yes, there's other factors, but the villain, the person you're chasing after, the person you're fighting to get to, is what makes these games so good. So that was my biggest complaint here. Other than that, again, looks good, plays good, sounds good. It has the Call of Duty over the top set pieces. It's great. It's a fun time. Now, is it worth $75 for just the campaign? Absolutely not. And or Warzone and multiplayer, absolutely infuriating due to skill-based matchmaking? Absolutely. But it's Call of Duty. You know what you're going to get. You know what you should come to expect from the game. And I feel like from the other options that came out this year, this was a pretty good one. So our number one spot goes to Callisto Protocol. Now, interestingly, looking back on my list, a lot of these are controversial, right? Like Gotham Knights, Callisto Protocol, where I put High on Life. A lot of people are going to disagree. Same thing where I put Overwatch 2. A lot of people are going to disagree with pretty much all of those. But like all of those games, I think this game's pretty damn good. This game is very good. I gave it, I want to say an 8. It had a lot of bugs and a lot of problems, and that's what lowered it a whole point for me at launch. But now, once all that stuff's been fixed, it could easily be a 9. Now, yes, it's short. It's very short. Yes, it uses cheap jump scares. I'm going to go through and address all of the complaints that people talked about on Twitter and such. If you can't tell, that's what I'm doing. Yes, it's pretty much all graphics with a lot of walking around and a little bit of gameplay in between it. But I think it's great. Now, where I disagree with most people is everyone complained a lot about the combat and that it doesn't work, and the fact that you use the left stick to dodge, it's just boring and clunky. I disagree. It's different. It's cool. It feels like you have to actually do something. In most games, you have such a large window of opportunity to dodge that there's really no challenge at all, even on higher difficulties. I mean, other than the obvious, like Elden Ring and games like that. But even, like, what I've compared this to is Jedi Fallen Order. I played that on the hardest difficulty, and that's what I would compare this to on normal. This isn't easy, and again, that's part of what made this enjoyable. It has a decent story. Again, it's not a 10 out of 10 story, but the gameplay is good, the graphics are good, and it was just something different from everything else that was coming out the rest of the year. Now, this is my list. Obviously, your list is going to be different. It's probably going to have God of War, and it's probably going to have Elden Ring on it. Let's talk Elden Ring. I played it. It was fine. I don't think it's that great. I must have been doing something wrong because I restarted it twice, and both times I started it, I got a decent 10 hours in, beat the first 2 or 3 bosses both times, and I pretty much still had my base gear. I didn't understand where people were getting this gear from. I was exploring everywhere, doing everything. I don't understand. I just was doing something wrong, and that could be my fault, right? I could totally have just been playing the game wrong, and that's why I didn't enjoy it. But I don't know if it's just that's the slow pace of the game, that you only go through 2 or 3 gear sets of the entire length of the game. That's how it is. That's just not how I like things. But again, this is just my list. You can have a different list. You're more than likely going to. But next, we'll talk about the most disappointing games. That'll be tomorrow or the day after, whenever I get around to making that video. I'm not doing the worst games because obviously there's going to be a worse game than the games that I mentioned. There's going to be some game that some dude paid like $90 for and it doesn't run at all. That's why I do disappointing games that I had hopes for and just fell flat. So this is my best games of the year. You guys comment your lists down below. If you would change my list around, what would you move? What would you take out? All of that good stuff. And I'll see you guys on the next one.